I can just say we will not rest until we pass the $15 minimum wage.
All of our workers from coast to coast need at least $15 an hour.
Yeah! Progressives have been advocating for a $15 minimum wage for the last couple of years now, saying it will raise the wage of the poor and lift people out of poverty. It seems logical, but it's nothing more than a populist tactic with no evidence behind it. The minimum wage kills jobs, lowers wages, and creates inflation. Unemployment and the minimum wage. Keynesian economist Paul Krugman, in a column for the New York Times, wrote, "Until the 1994 Carter-Krueger study, most economists, myself included, assumed that raising the minimum wage would have a clear negative effect on employment, but they found, if anything, a positive effect. The result has been confirmed using data from many episodes. There is just no evidence that raising the minimum wage costs jobs, at least when the starting point is as low as this in modern America." As always, Krugman is wrong. A couple of years before that column was written, the Fair Minimum Wage Act, which increased the minimum wage from $5.15 to $7.25 between 2007 and 2009, resulted in a 2.8 percentage point increase in youth unemployment. During the Great Recession, youth unemployment increased by 11.2 percentage points, so the increase in the minimum wage can account for about 25% of that increase. Aside from other multiple historical examples when the minimum wage caused higher unemployment, the large majority of data-driven economic studies demonstrate that significant increases in the minimum wage also increase unemployment. Wages. The second problem with the minimum wage is with its second word. The minimum wage doesn't boost wages, but rather it lowers them. You might ask, how can that be? If you set a higher minimum wage, employers cannot pay lower than that. Well, that's true for one point, but they can also lower the hours you work. A common response that happens when there is an increase in the minimum wage is that employers cut the hours that employees work and the employees make less than what they did before the minimum wage hike. An example of this is Seattle. After Seattle increased its minimum wage to $13 an hour, lower wage employees reported working 9% fewer hours and earned $125 less per month on average, according to research at the University of Washington. Inflation. Inflation hurts the poor of the poorest because it destroys the purchasing power people have. And since the poor make a small amount of money, if there is a general price increase of around 2%, people's money are worth 2% less, and that is a big hit to the poor since they care about each and every cent of their dollars. And the minimum wage is one of the main causes of inflation aside from central banks. Since most businesses that pay minimum wage are small mom-and-pop firms with low profit margins, the typical fast food restaurant only earns 3 to 6 cents of profit per dollar of sales. These firms can only afford to pay higher wages by raising prices for consumers. An example of this is with a big company called McDonald's. A study from Princeton economist Orly Ashenfelter and Czech economist Stepan Jurajka found that minimum wage hikes led to much higher prices at McDonald's. The minimum wage does more harm than it does good. It is not a law that promotes employment, it rather promotes unemployment. In a free market, wages would be increased because of real market competition. Singapore is a good example of this. Singapore, which doesn't have a minimum wage, has a higher average income than the United States, which obviously has a minimum wage.